So if you've just joined us, welcome to Animex, which is Teesside University's animation festival for, sorry, Teesside University's International Festival for Animation, VFX, and Games. So my name is Matty McGrory. I'm a senior lecturer at Teesside University. My subject that I specialize in, but I'm on a call with Pete, so I don't really specialize in it that much, is game design. So if you want any more information on the rest of the schedule that we're running this evening and tomorrow as well, you can go to animex.tees.ac.uk, and you can also find like a list of our sponsors and more information on our main event partner, which is the Tees Valley Combined Authority. So we're joined today by Pete Ellis. So Pete's a game designer at Naughty Dog in Los Angeles, where he's recently worked on the critically acclaimed, fastest selling PlayStation exclusive of all time, The Last of Us Part 2. It's a game that's been heralded as the greatest game of all time by many reviewers. It was hugely successful sequel to the Naughty Dog's game of the decade, The Last of Us. Prior to working in California, Pete worked in the UK for over 10 years. He was first at Frontier, then he moved to Gorilla Cambridge as senior designer. So he's worked on first-person titles, releasing Killzone Mercenaries for the PS Vita, Killzone Shadowfall for the PS4, and then Riggs Mechanized Combat League for the PSVR. Throughout his career, he's spoken at many games industry conferences such as GDC Europe and Development Brighton, as well as numerous universities. He's also written many articles for industry websites, as well as being published in books and European industry magazine. The coolest thing for us is, apart from all this cool stuff, is that Pete is a Teesside graduate, and he studied computer game design a long time ago, because we were trying to figure out the dates.
Because I'm old.
And it lined up with me as well, so we both felt old. And then he also studied an MA in computer games art. So today's format's going to be like a little bit different, because we've already kind of grabbed loads of questions for Pete. And we've kind of bunched them together into little topics. Like Pete's helped us like curate these kind of questions. So I'll be kind of fielding the questions to Pete, and then he'll give his answers, and then we'll move along like that. We've bunched a few of them together, so he can answer them all as one kind of big cohesive chunk. So I would normally at this stage be like, give a massive round of applause for Pete Ellis, but I'm sure everyone's super excited and they want to hear you talk instead of me. So hello,
That's
Pete.
cool. Thanks for the intro. It's flattering. Does make me feel old now.
Yeah.
Years ago, 2003, I started Teesside, graduated 2006, and then went back and did my master's 2007 to 2008.
Cool. So yeah. Are you okay for us to start with the questions, Pete?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. So the first question we got was, how did you get your job at Naughty Dog? And was it difficult getting a work visa?
Great. Well, you've done a lot of introduction there for me, so I don't have to talk about all my experience. So I'll just start from after that. So I started at Naughty Dog when I had been a senior designer in the UK with 8.5 years experience. I'd actually first applied to Naughty Dog, 2 years earlier, in January 2015. I'd had some major surgery in the September the year before, and it kind of gave me the kick to, go, you should apply. Like if I don't do it now, like I never will, sort of thing. But what was holding me back was like a friend of mine, Peter Field. He had worked at Naughty Dog previously. In fact, he got his visa on. I think it was 2.5 years experience. He was a much better designer than I was at 2.5 years experience. So I hope at least people who are listening who aspire to go and work abroad aren't thinking, oh, I've got to wait 8.5 years. You can do it. It's got to be as good as Pete Field, not as good as me at 2.5 years. But he had issues with, when it comes to American work permits or visas, if you want to take your spouse, you have to be married, like if you want to take your partner with you. And he had gone over and had some sort of issues, like he wasn't married, so his girlfriend could go over for 3 months at a time, would have to leave the country, and then would have to come back again. And so I was putting it off applying to Naughty Dog because about the time I was going to apply and I felt a bit confident that I could, had the ability to do it. I met my now wife, and that was going well. So I wanted to stick around and see how that went. And so I thought, well, I do know other people who are on different nationality passports, and they get different visas for America, where like they don't have to necessarily. I think they still have to be married, but their spouse can work, whereas for a British passport, your spouse isn't allowed to work. And so, well, I thought, well, I don't really know all the visa details, so I'd like to sort of get an application in or something and get it started. And a friend of mine, Simon Vickers, he had a friend who was a designer at Naughty Dog at the time, James Cooper. So he got me in touch with him, and he answered loads of questions. Was great. He, talked to me about even like the medical situation, because obviously for British people we get it all free, right? And America, you wouldn't have Breaking Bad in England, right? And so he answered these questions, and I said, like, I really want to apply, but I'm not married. Can I speak to them about work visas? So we asked the recruiting team, and they said, well, we quite literally get hundreds of people apply every month. So we would only really invest our time if we know a candidate's like worthwhile. So apply, and we'll see where you go. So I got so usually if you're applying for a job, my previous experience is that you'll get an interview, and if that's good, you'll then get a design test to do. Whereas with Naughty Dog, the design test is notoriously difficult. And I think I was told something like 80% of people fail it, or something like that, but it's really difficult. So they send that out first. So I got the design test. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but if you're going to apply for a job as a designer, as a level designer, a layout designer, you'd be a good guess that you'd be asked to design a level for a game that that company works on. So I got a test on Uncharted 4. Luckily, I passed it, which is a great relief. And then I had a first Skype interview where they talk about the design tests, and I passed that. And then I had my next interview about sort of general design. And then they phoned up and they're saying that they want to make me an offer. But I said, I really need to speak about visas, because like me and my then girlfriend were not married. And basically it boiled down to, you have to be married if you want to bring her. So I made the very difficult decision in terms of career to say, sorry, like, we're not married, and like my values, whether you think this is old fashioned or not, but like, I don't think you should be getting married for a visa. Like if you don't have to, like, yes, if your partner was going to be deported or something because they're like a different nationality, and the only way to keep them in the country is to get married, then sure, I'd be doing that. But this was just, can I go and get my dream job? I didn't want to rush a marriage. I wanted to, propose and everything, and I knew I was going to do it, but I wanted to do it sort of my way. So I said, sorry, like, I can't come now then. I'm going to have to turn the job down. It's really difficult because Uncharted 4 came out and it was amazing. And I was like, I could have been on that. But, I don't regret my decision because, I've always valued sort of, your relationships and stuff over any career. So I said, sorry, I'm going to have to sort of get back to you when I am married. And they said, okay, well, you're quite a good candidate to get an O1 visa. So the two sort of types of visas, like really in terms of entertainment, a H1B, where you have to sort of prove that no one in America can do the job as well as you. But because there's such a huge amount of people that apply, I think it's only about 30% of successful applicants will actually get the visa. So they said, we prefer not to do that because there's 60% chance you're not going to get the visa. But you're a good candidate for an O1 visa, which is for extraordinary ability and special achievement. Because I've done a few like talks at unis and I have quite a lot of experience and worked on some good titles. So they said some things to help like get your visa case built up while you're waiting. Like do as many talks at unis, games conferences, anything like that. Do articles, try and get like published in books and things. Try and build up your profile and get stuff out there and contribute to the education of the industry. So it was 2 years doing that. In between that, me and my wife, we actually went out to Santa Monica as well to see if we'd like it. We'd never actually been to California. And James Cooper was really nice and showed me around the studio while we were there, actually. So I got to meet everyone as well. And And then so in the following year after that, 2016, we were married, and I came back and said, "Hey, I'm married now. I'm still very much interested if you are." And they said, "Yeah. The only problem is you previously interviewed for Uncharted 4 with Bruce Straley, and he's gone on sabbatical. So you're going to be interviewing for Last of Us with Neil Druckmann, and you hadn't interviewed with him before. So you have to do all the testing again." So like when Naughty Dog say, "Do a test again," you say, "Yeah, okay." You know, you don't go, "Oh, forget it then." You say, "Yeah, whatever you need." So I did another design test. This was different. It was about Last of Us, and they gave me a different time limit this time. The first one was 72 hours, and this one was 4 hours, which is really difficult. But they wanted to also test if you can finish stuff. Luckily, I passed that. Had my next Skype interview and passed that. Had following one after that and passed that. And then they rang me up, I think it was like 15 minutes after the last interview, and said, the fourth stage is we'd fly you out and do an on-site interview, but because the year before you'd been out here and you'd met us all, and you've passed the tests twice over, we want to just offer you the job now. So that was great. I accepted the job, and then we started putting my visa application together. So collating all the stuff I'd done, all the talks, articles, everything like that. Took about 6 months to then go through the process and it get approved. And then you have an embassy interview. So I had to go down to London to the US embassy, go through all like the airport security, because it's technically American soil, right? And so I had to give all your fingerprints, give all your passports and everything, which is fine because I'd done all the forms and they'd done extensive background checks. Anyway, I was really nervous because this was like the last stage. Like if I slipped up here and they denied me, that's 2 years out the window. Thankfully, it was actually fine. I had a very strong application. I think it was 8.5 out of 10 points, and anything over 5 is like a strong case. So it was kind of like going and speaking to somebody in a post office, because there's all these windows with the plastic over. I just went up to the lady who was dealing with us, and she only asked me a few questions. She was like, "Why do Naughty Dog need you specifically?" But they'd written everything in my case, so I just gave the information back. Like, felt very big-headed, but it was all stuff like, I'm one of the best in my field and all this kind of stuff, and they need me to keep the standard of their games up and improve and stuff. And they needed to know what my salary was, just so they could check that Naughty Dog weren't importing cheap labour over in American, which they weren't doing. And then they just asked my wife what would she be doing for work, and of course she can't do anything. So she's like, "Nothing." They're like, "Good, that's the right answer. You're aware that you're not allowed to work." And then they said, "Yeah, you've got your been approved," and we gave them the passports. And then a week later, the passports came back with the visas in them. And then we booked flights. And in March 2017, I flew out. It was a Thursday we arrived, and I started work at Naughty Dog on Friday on The Last of Us Part 2, which is a dream come true because it was like my favourite game, and I've always wanted to work on that franchise. And that's how I got there.
Yeah, awesome. So the next bunch of questions we've kind of blocked together. So I'll run through them, and then I think you've got really awesome examples that I'll answer it for us.
Cool. I hope they're
so
awesome.
the ones that we've bunched together are: what does a designer do? Like, what is an average day like working at Naughty Dog? How do you go about designing a level for The Last of Us 2? Is there a theme or story for a level set in stone while you're iterating through Blockout, or can it be changed based on the gameplay as a result of many iterations? And how much freedom are you given when designing a level? What brief are you given? So that's a substantial chunk of questions.
That's all right. That's good, because I think I can answer all those by giving an example. I'll do a screen share. What I'll do, I'll walk you through one of my levels. So I right, let's start the screen share. Right. So I worked on 4 levels in The Last of Us. The opening level, where you play as Joel going up to Jackson. The beginning of Seattle, day 1, where you go through the forest, get to the quarantine zone wall, get over it and open the gate. The school shootout, where you start like tied up and then you fight your way out. And then when you leave the theatre alone as Ellie, you leave Dina behind, you go through the streets, fight some infected, do some puzzles, find a cheeky workbench that's got something unique about it, get the introduction of the stalkers, go through the sewer, and then come out, and then you get this is the introduction of the scars, and you go all the way up to the beginning of the RE3 demo, and then that stops being my stuff. So what I'll do is I'll talk about this level. We call it internally Seattle Arrival, but I think it's called the Gate if you do your chapter select in Last of Us Part 2. And I've chose this one because it doesn't have any combat for starters. So like depending on what kind of level games you like people listening might want to work on, like combat design is its own thing, puzzle design is its own thing. Whereas I'll take you through. So this without combat, hopefully it's useful to everyone. But if this is seemingly simple, but every inch of what it did was considered. So I'm going to take you through something and show designers or interested in getting into design what it is that you should be considering. And then if you're not interested in design but are just like curious about the hearing from other disciplines, then you hopefully understand that designers will have a reason for everything they're doing, or should do at least. When it comes to a brief, so this is a shot, a frame from a talk that I gave in 2013 for Killzone Mercenary. And I showed what the brief was that I started off with. So sorry about the low res. I mean, this is from like 7 years ago, so I couldn't find the original stuff. But this was 10 pages, like lots of bullet points and stuff, and covered all the things. Whereas at Naughty Dog, we're quite famous for we don't really do like that much documentation because no one wants to read it. It's hard to keep, it's hard to maintain. And if it's just a lot less, it means you can fill in the gaps a lot more when you've got more creativity and freedom. So this was the, we called it the macro. This is like a spreadsheet of things that I was given for Seattle Arrival, this level. So I can just read this one. It says, Ellie and Dina are tracking Tommy on horseback. They explore through wilderness, then along a highway that leads up to a massive quarantine zone wall. So that's what I'm given as the brief, which is perfect. It's very simple. I get to fill in all the gaps as I see fit, which is great. It's got a lot of freedom there. Also the notes. So this is interesting, right? So there's another note. Wide enough to wander and come across interesting vignettes, crashed airplane, buildings, etc. Occasional moment to get a horse and scavenge. I'll come back to that because that's how we started off. One of the questions, Matty, was it that like is it set in stone?
Yeah, so it's like is the theme or story? It's a theme or story for a level set in stone.
Great. Okay, so this is like the starting point, and I'll show you how it was not set in stone, in a good way. So yeah, then we also get like in our documentation, like it's a horse and you're exploring. Ellie and Dina are there, and the new gameplay is the first time you're in a wide area with the horse, and that's all we're given, which is perfect for the kind of way I like to design. So the concepts that we started off with, one of our directors, one of our arts directors, John Sweeney, did these concepts. Originally this level was in fog, and you're going through all this like dilapidated areas, like you had these vignettes like this down plane, you had like this broken building, and you were sort of stumbling along through the fog and you weren't really sure where you were and you're a bit lost and disorientated, and then you came across the quarantine zone wall and you're like, oh, I didn't realise how close you were. Now, we weren't really getting that great feedback in focus tests because we'd done such a good job of making you feel like a bit lost and disorientated that people were saying, I didn't really like it because I felt lost and disorientated. So it wasn't really the best sort of emotions to be trying to promote in the player. So I went back and said, I want to change it up if that's all right. I think that one of the things that is not helping is that because you're in dense fog and you can't see far ahead of you, you've got nothing further into the environment that's acting as motivation. So there's nothing interesting, no landmarks or anything that are pulling you through. You're just sort of stumbling along going, I'm not sure what I'm meant to do. Whereas if you could see things, you're like, I want to aim for that. So we spoke about it and everyone's like on board and they're like, yeah, let's do this, let's change it up. So I'll show you, now I'll take you through the actual block mesh, the level. So I'll show you very early, like block mesh stuff. So this is what I sort of started off with. Oh, too far ahead, right. Ruining it. So I built like this forest out, which I'll take you through now. And
drowning him.
You had started here, and then when you got closer to Seattle, you
out?
started to see
I didn't even
like
think.
evidence that you're getting closer, and it was these
Wait a
cars in this
minute.
clearing.
Hey,
And what was happening
are
is
those
we were
cars?
having this cool conversation with Ellie
We're
and
getting
Dina, and it's
close.
building Dina's character. But then when you found
So,
like evidence of
anyway,
getting closer to Seattle,
I didn't
it
even
interrupted
think.
that conversation.
I've
And
been in
then
there,
the girl stopped talking about
grabbed his
this
gun
and then went back to the
shot him in the
conversation.
head.
So in two ways, it felt
How
a bit
old were
off
you?
because it was like, well,
14.
really, we don't want to interrupt the conversation. And we don't want to, sorry, I'm just going to play the other. We don't want to interrupt the conversation. And we also don't want to kind of gloss over the fact that you've just found evidence that you're getting closer. So we spoke about it, and we added this new section to the forest after that, which like this is the block mesh of what I did. And it was to bring it in tight, bring it in like closer, so the horse wasn't galloping along, because the conversation that was recorded was like a bit more hushed and intimate, and so we wanted to showcase that. So I built the level to accommodate that that conversation. So I'll take you through now the actual level itself, and I'll talk you through like my design decisions and stuff. So this is the beginning of Saturday 1. Got a few notes here. So yeah, this extra bit was added for this conversation, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is what we call a stick abort, where if you've got an animation, and hang on, sorry, 2 seconds. I just want to make sure I haven't lowered this down completely. That's fine. This animation of the horse at the start, if you just didn't touch anything and left it going, what would happen is the horse would gradually slow down and come to a stop. Whereas we do this thing called a stick abort, where as the camera is getting closer to like the gameplay camera, you're not really sure exactly when it is that you can take control, so we just allow you to take control seamlessly. So I'll point out where it is that I move the stick and it just goes seamlessly into gameplay. So it is there, and I just let you like carry on and interrupt the animation. Now, say I let you do that. This is not actually my work. That could be credited to Mark Burrows and Mikhail Mack. Mark Burrows was my scripter on this level. We do each level in a pair, where I was the layout designer or level designer. And so I created like the block mesh, and then what happens in like the level, what moments we have. And Burrowsy was the scripter, which is what other companies would call a technical designer. So he did all the scripting and brought it all in together. Now, I initially did like the base level of scripting, so leaving the layout design in its script. And then Mikhail Mack, who's like head of like technical animation, and he helped with getting the horse really smooth. We put a lot of effort into this one, so that it felt really nice, and it's just seamless, and it's the kind of extra polish that Naughty Dog are known for. And so here at the start, we're coming along, and the path bends off to the right. Now, the reason why I did off to the right and not to the left is that where the camera is, when you're not in combat, and that's when the camera actually is behind you, like dead center, the camera's usually, when it's not in combat, it's offset to the right. And so to frame the path better, I used it off onto the right, because if it went to the left, it would be going behind the girls, and you wouldn't be able to see really where it was going. 14. So then it bends around to the right. I get you a bit higher up, a bit of a better vantage point. And it's really so that from higher up, you can then see the path easier, and it snakes around to the left. So you can see here, like the lightest part there is where the path continues, because I didn't want you feeling like you're bouncing off the sides, not knowing where to go. So I just sort of made it easier to see the path there. Here I start to bring in like the tightness, so that the next area is a lot more open, and just to give that contrast, so the next area feels more open, I bring these sections in tighter. And then I even, at this point, add in this duck under here, this physics branch. So the reason why I wanted to do that was it's an interesting mechanic to me. I really like that they interact with the environment. It feels responsive. The players are like interacting, and they feel integrated into that world. So it's getting even tighter from not just the sides, but from the top as well. So it's really about the moment-to-moment pacing Not just the overall macro of like you go through the forest, go to the highway, go to the wall. It's like, okay, every few seconds, what's happening? Because if I just left it as you're just going through the forest, it could get very one tone. So I kept changing it up, like it's, you know, going down, getting tighter. Now this part, it gets more open and wider. Here I also open it out and give you a little bit of choice to begin with, because so far it's just been the one path to get you started off. So can you guys see my mouse?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So you can go left and you can go right. And there's a lot of height difference here. So if this here, like it slopes down, and then that's the same sort of position, but left and right is a lot more undulation, and it's really important to get that into your environments, especially natural environments. You play with the height a lot. That was one of the first things I really learned in White Dog, that my levels were a bit too flat, and sort of joked that I was a really good level designer because everything's level. So the world itself is very it's not flat at all. So if you can get as much undulation in as possible, even with natural non-natural stuff like you know, buildings, if you could put them on like uneven terrain, it will force you to have interesting shapes, like stairs going up to bits where you've had to flatten areas out and things like that. Here with just the eagle-eyed of you, will start to notice that this rock looks a little bit strange and out of place because it doesn't look natural, and the reason is not natural. Just starting to drip feed a little bit of evidence that this isn't a completely overgrown natural forest. It's like got some buildings and things left in. There's evidence of human of life, like, you know, human stuff in there before. And the lighting here is super important as well. So you can go off right here if you want. Also, the lighting's brilliant. My lighting artist on this level, Anton Deschamps, was absolutely superb. I just ran through the block mesh once, and he knew exactly what he was doing, and he lit the path. He used, like, if you squint at the screen, you can see like the lightest parts are the path, and that was important here because you can't see the ground. There isn't an actual path you're following. It's all covered in ferns and stuff that the environment artist and Sharon Bednarek and the texture artist Richard Piper had done, made it look lovely and lush. So to help you be able to just navigate through in this beginning, we lent on the lighting there. This now brings you back to, so it's gone a bit wider, give you a little bit more choice, now crunching you back together to get it tighter, and I'm going to force you into another physics branch here. And so, because again, it's about that moment-to-moment pacing, like gone tighter, open, two choices, back to tight from above as well. And so here I've got this dog leg that goes right and then goes left, and I've also got this drop down here, which is a valve. So other companies might call it like a hard gate. We call it a valve. It's just a one-way direction. So as the horse, you can drop down, but if you turn around, you can't get back up again. And I've used it here for multiple reasons. One is for level loading. So anything behind that last physics branch that we just ducked under, I'd completely drop out of memory. So gone, it's not loaded anymore. And we just flip it with a preloaded, very low version. That's why I had the dog leg. So like if you look back, you actually can't see past the physics branch anyway. But we just put a few like low poly trees in. So if you were looking behind and it dropped out, you wouldn't see anything like disappear. But also and so the way the levels are split up is that it's the ground and the trees are actually separate levels. So we start to now load in trees for further along, because from here you can see the trees, but you won't be able to see the ground. So we haven't started to load that in yet. And that means what we have loaded, we can really put as much fidelity and detail into it and really squeeze as much out of the PS4 as we could. Also, what is happening here is now the horse is, it can go faster than it was. So we've opened it out. The forest becomes a lot more sort of open here. This was the original start, and then we force you through this tighter bit, and then here it becomes a lot more open, a lot more porous, a lot more options, and we sped the horse up. But if we did it on like the end of a conversation, or just hitting an invisible barrier that you can't see, like a visible region, and then just start going faster, it'd be really jarring. So we tend to do changes like that on an action. So the action was the drop down. So I was using it for two things, for level loading and for changing the speed of the horse. Also here, the clumps of like the trees and the bushes and stuff, what I've done is made them like little sort of cylindrical islands so that you're never bumping into things and hitting dead ends or hitting sharp or hard edges and having to like force your way out. It was all meant to be quite smooth. And I was trying to put as much sort of undulation and stuff in. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to quickly show you, go back to the early block mesh one, just because it's easy to see without all like the cool ferns and stuff on the ground. Oh, ruining it.
Couldn't get to his
So like here,
Wait,
like you can see a lot easier that it's a bit more of a bowl. Like if I pause it here, like this slopes up quite a lot, this slopes down. I've done it for two reasons. One is that wherever you are, you should be able to see into the middle, which is where I want you to go. But also I then hide the boundaries of the space behind the hills on the edges. So like up here, actually there's like a dip, and then there's like bushes and stuff that you can't get past. So I give the illusion that there's much greater space, but there's not. But if you do go to the edges, it like loops you back round and pushes you back out to the way you want you to be going. So hopefully it's seamless and you're not getting bounced around too much. So I'll go back to this again. So I had this theory that unless people have a reason to change direction or change their path in situations like this, like when in a forest, they won't. And I feel like it's to keep them from getting themselves lost. Like if you didn't know where you were going, you would keep going straight. Because if you go, we have to turn back, you can just turn around and go back. Whereas if you've zigzagged all over the place, you're not going to know where you started from. Don't know if that is true, but it's what I felt was right from just playing it myself. And then we're seeing that was true for the focus tests. People were sort of coming in, maybe weaving around a bit, seeing that it was all open and porous, but really just staying ahead and keep going. And so I lent on that by putting the discovery of the cars right ahead. So if you just keep going straight, you will find the cars. I mean, it's more open and porous. So even if you veer off, it'll feed you back into this clearing. And then what I wanted you to, or what I've done here with the cars, I've angled them in a way that like they're facing this other direction. So like if you start from here, like you're going straight, and then in this example, the cars are sort of like a more 45, almost like 90-degree turn here. And so it's giving you a motivated change so that you purposely want to change direction, so that you're not really walking around, not just going in the forest, going straight and going, okay, I've hit the cars, and I'll keep going, I've hit the freeway, or I just need to hold the stick forward. So you're like feeling like you're working this out yourself. And you're going, oh, this way, this looks like it's got evidence of human life, so we'll go this way. And you can start seeing, this is really cool, like the overgrown traffic lights and stuff is awesome. So this bus stop as well was the first spot that we had the original downtown, the map for downtown Seattle. We had it here, but then we decided actually that it felt too early to get it, because you were coming here. If you got off the horse and explored this little section, you're getting a map of Seattle, but you didn't really know you were that close. So it's kind of ruining it, the reveal a little bit. So we took it out, but luckily the artists had done this really nice job of giving context of why you'd be able to find a map here by putting like these kind of little leaflet things here. When we needed another spot for a trading card pickup, had a perfect place to put it, and it's on the back side of the bus stop. So as you like approach forwards, you won't be able to see it, but if you get off your horse and explore, it's then easy to find if you then sort of turn back and look around. So it's like an easy to find secret, but well, it's a good place for that without having to alter any of the art. So now the next thing is we're going up towards the freeway. So you follow the direction of the cars. And what I've done is I've hidden the freeway reveal behind this, this hill. Now, I forget the exact amount, but from about there to the ground where the girls are, it's about 6 to 8 meters, which is quite a lot. It's, it's almost a or 8 meters is the 2 levels or 2 stories of a building. So it's really quite high. So I wanted to emphasize that you can get away with a lot of terrain change and undulation. But I also wanted the hill not just to hide the reveal so you can crest it, but also that here you're like building up to something, you're climbing, and in human psychology, like climbing gives you that feeling of progression when you're getting like close to the summit of something. So come up to this the top, and then you get the reveal of the freeway. It was like hidden in plain sight. It was just behind the hill. The trees themselves still like obfuscate it quite a lot. Is because we wanted to make it like it wasn't just there for you to see. So what I mean by that, let me just dip out of this and go back to the block mesh, like an early block mesh one. So when I did the first early block mesh,
how old were you?
I was getting feedback that 14. This reveal here, where you crest over, although it's still hidden behind some trees, it felt a lot more like that was just made for the player to see. It felt too tidy and nice. So I wanted to sort of hide it a little bit more, make it still feel a bit natural. Like it wasn't like, ta-da, we've set this up for you to see. It was like, oh, I found this. You know, I didn't realize it's here. But also, I had originally done it where you're angled. You were here. You're angled down the correct path, and it felt a little bit too much of a gimme in that, like, you're just going, okay, like I've got here. It's angling down this way. It's along the correct path. I'll just carry it. So what we did instead, we in the final art, what we did was we started you at like literally 90 degree, and because I'd primed you previously just in that clearing with following the direction of the cars, it kind of gave you that choice of like, all right, what are we going to do from here? It's left or right, and then so most people actually just followed the direction of the cars, which is great. And so that people didn't get too like upset or not upset, like so they didn't sort of have to waste and backtrack too much if they took the wrong path. It's really hard to see purposely that actually the boundaries here, so there's not much backtracking if you did go off to the right, because the way the road is like much flatter because of perspective, you can't really see that there's many dips. So I'm hiding the boundary from sight. But if you did go down there, you wouldn't be able to go too far. And then here, so you start going along the freeway. I also made the conscious decision not to put any pickups or scavengeables on or in the cars. And that was something that they had learnt from Last of Us 1, was that if when they were putting scavengeables and stuff in cars, people were then feeling like they had to get off and go and look at every single car, because that's one of our fundamental gameplay loops of trying to scavenge to get items and things. So purposely didn't do that, but I then gave you another opportunity for scavenging in a second. But here, little drop down there, that's beginning to prime you for, again, remind you of the drop down mechanic that over here, which we'll get to in a second, you get to drop down into like another valve. And because it's a bit of a steeper one, I wanted you to feel more confident and comfortable that you could do it. Like early block mesh tests didn't have that, and people were getting to the edge and going, no, it looks too far. So I had to alter it by like sloping down more and then adding that primer of like, yeah, dropping down's fine, you can do it, and then it became not a non-issue.
Do you want to jump to the other ones and come back to these questions again? You warned me there. Yeah, sure, mate. I could talk about this all day. That's the main thing. I could watch you talk about it all day, but you did warn me to make you skip about after about 20 minutes or so.
One question. Let's go on to the next 20.
I think the next few are like quite short. So then obviously, if we have enough time, I'd love for us to jump back in there.
Yeah, sure. Very nice.
So the next two, we've kind of bunched together because one of them is, do you recommend that level designers learn how to model, and if so, to what proficiency? And then the other one is, would you recommend that level designers learn a programming language, and if so, which one?
Great, yeah. Question two, can you hear me? Because my aircon's just turned on. Is this still fine? Great, okay. Yeah. So should they level designers learn to do 3D modeling? Absolutely, it's a requirement. You will be spending all your time, well, most of your time modeling in something like Maya or 3D Studio Max. In fact, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna steal the screen share again off you, Matto.
Yeah, awesome.
Right, and I'm gonna show you, go away, Circular Rival. So, right, I'll just show you some block mesh examples. So what proficiency is a good question, because, so these are examples of my block mesh stuff that I've done. This is purposely simplified. And the reason is for speed of iteration, you don't want to spend ages modeling every single like leaf on a tree or anything like that, or the handrails and ornate things. And also for ease of iteration, in terms of if we get feedback of like, oh, you know what, we should delete that bush. It's absolutely fine, because the bush is really super blocky. I mean, like look at that. Like, if you said delete that, I'd be like, fine. It's, you know, it's seconds work. Actually, this is an instance, so like it's even quicker. Someone modeled it once, and then everyone just uses it, and bosh, done. So it's purposely super simple, so we can do it quickly. So you need to be able to be efficient enough to be able to do it in this amount of detail. I would say that because I've worked with quite a few designers who say, like, oh, I just got into design because I wasn't really good at art, and so I thought I'd just do design. Like, no, you don't just do design. Like, it's a very important, if not the, well, I'd say biased, if not the most important discipline, because it's like the center and everything connects into it, because you're crafting experiences. Like I'm gonna a little cheeky something I'll show you just to make a point that, like, this was the stuff that me and my brother were doing for his company like over 10 years ago. So excuse the small size, like 720p was like big as a TV back then. But this was all done in 3D Studio Max and V-Ray, and so this is the kind of level of art that I can do. So it's not like we do block mesh because we can't do art, it's because we need to keep it simplified and quick. So yeah, you'll need to be able to work in like a 3D package. It's that sort of level of proficiency. And what was the other one? What coding? What language?
Should they learn a programming language, and if so, is there one that you would recommend?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, absolutely. Designer sort of crosses over lots of disciplines and things. So like in my first two companies, I did it all from like the level design to the scripting. At Naughty Dog, we used to actually split it up and specialize. So I do the layout, and my scripters will do the bulk of the like the heavy lifting when it comes to the scripting stuff. So I have had to do like scripting before, and you have to do it at the end of the project when there's not that much block meshing done. You sort of then help out doing scripting and stuff. So I would recommend Lua, but it doesn't really matter. I would suggest just as long as you can, you know, you understand the principles of, you know, doing variables and booleans and stuff, because like we actually use Lisp at Naughty Dog. Don't worry about learning that. No one else uses it, and it's just something that our engineers always use, so we just kept carrying it forward. And they've never told me about it before I got there, and when I got there, they're like, you don't need to know this. Like, as long as you can type code, you'll be able to pick this up. So yeah, I'd suggest maybe something like Lua, because it's good to, you know, easy to pick up.
Cool. So the next two that we've grouped together are, where do you find inspiration, and what non-game products influence you the most?
Right, I'm going to quickly load something up to show you. So I guess the non-game products, I guess like the easiest one would be like film, because it's quite close as a medium to games. But really what I'd say, I split my inspiration, the way I think about inspiration is in two ways. It's one, inspiration that you just like find, and you come across it and it's like, oh, that's great, that's really inspired me to do something. And the other one is like, if I'm sitting down and I'm starting a new level, I'm thinking, all right, I need some inspiration, what am I going to do? And like, I need to find it immediately. So the inspiration that like finds me, as it were, I actually would say the real world. So let me just screen share this stuff. So like I did this, if you're interested, I did this article. It's funny because I thought it was probably only interesting to me, but I'll put it out anyway. But other people have like since said, this is something like I really do. I'm interested in. There's something called environmental transference. So this you probably all just see it as like a handrail. Can you see that, all right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Like a handrail. But to me, because I've snowboarded for years, I see it as an obstacle for like sliding down. So where as a level designer, I can't turn that part of my brain off, and I see all these things around the world around me, and it inspires me of what to do. So things like, when we went to New York, like you could see the Empire State Building glowing, but you couldn't get to it. And so to me, I was like, look, you've got a landmark in the back, you've got your denial space in between, and you're going to have to go through that route there because it's being suggested by the opening in the buildings. And so I pick up on that stuff. And you can, like, if you're early on in your sort of career and you might not necessarily like see the wall that way yet, go out and just try and look for these examples. You may be able to already see these things, and like try and then take it back into your work. So like this is an example in Cambridge where I used to live. Like you had the light coming in at the back, the angled wall suggesting something's behind there and that way. You had these stairs signifying importance and leading you up. You had then this boundary which was see-through, so you could see through it but you couldn't cross it, and it was just like a really interesting, intriguing space of like beckoning, like come here, come and investigate it. Of course in real life you're not going to hop the fence, you're never going to go up there, but you can then kind of take that stuff back into your work. Then the other one, so that's like what I find as like inspires me when I'm not looking for it. And then the other thing, if you're sitting down and you're going, all right, I need starting a new level, got to get some inspiration, what we're going to do. I like to use random words. So I'll have a printout of just literally random words. I don't mean anything. And you pick one and you start from there and you see where your creativity goes from that in terms of like, when I was taught about this, the example was given was that people who make M&Ms, they were trying to come up with a campaign, or what's their new marketing campaign going to be? And their random word that they picked was tire. So they're like, right, what do we think about when we think of a tire? And we think about like the treads that stick out. We think about the treads that go in, like, so like, is it embossed or is it sticking in? And so they were like, okay, what we could do, what can we emboss on our M&M? I would like the little M on it. We could like keep printing the letter on it a few times so that it sticks up. Or you could emboss it down so that push it in so that you've got a bit of a groove like a tire. And then someone was like, well, for cheapness, what if we just get rid of all of that and it's just an M&M without the M on it? And then they out of that, the campaign, like, I'm not sure if this was like 10, 15 years, 20 years ago. I remember it. I think it was when I was at school, but they then made a campaign out of I think it was the blue M&M and it didn't have an M on it. And if you did, you won a prize or what have you. So that's how you would use a random word. You start to sort of see where it makes you think and how you can apply it to your own work. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Cool. So the next one is how closely, I think you've kind of alluded to this a little bit when you were talking about working with lighting artists and stuff. Yeah. It's how closely do you work with other disciplines such as art, animation, and programming?
Very close. Of all the disciplines, design is the one that you need to be talking and interacting with every single one and collaborating with them all. Because design is like, we craft the experience, and obviously every other discipline plugs into that. You can't have a level without sound. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to work with every single discipline to get the experience that you're intending, and sort of collaborating with them, because I like to go and pitch my work and see what the other disciplines input is, because you can input that in early. Like, the artists are the best at knowing what looks best. So I'll say, here's my composition. How do you think we can improve it, and see what they think. Also, like, so Naughty Dog were a design led studio, so we know the importance of good design, and we have incredible people in all the other departments, luckily, because then they can make our designs look great, and we can craft the experience. But it's what I would also say is that if as a designer, you're going to be going and talking to loads of different people in all different departments. I'll just screen share one more thing with you here. That something that was I learned when I was doing like this sort of course for like management was about insights, and it's about like the different personality types and how you're perceived by other people, and how you can then deal with the people that you know aren't your personality types. So it's basically cut into four. It's not suggesting there's four different personality types. It's suggesting that we've each got a little bit of all of these. I just took this off, like I just did a Google search for the Insights color wheel, which explains why here, enthusiastic. I'm assuming that's really enthusiastic, but that's not my spelling mistake. So I am very yellow and very green, a little bit of red and not much blue. So to me, this is like, if we're looking on the left side here, to me, I think like I'm very sociable and dynamic and demonstrative, enthusiastic. You know, I like to use my words, my hands, or like I try and encourage people with what I think is getting juices flowing from my level and stuff. Whereas somebody who would be the opposite type of personality to me, if they were like very blue and very red, if you go to the other side here, like what says at the bottom, on a bad day, they would actually see me as like frantic and hasty. I'd also add disorganized as well. They would see me as if I just went over and started talking how like I usually am. So I need to know that rather than thinking they were being stuffy, indecisive, suspicious, cold, and reserved, I would know, like they themselves think that they're cautious, precise, deliberate, and formal. So I know, okay, I can't go over and just be all hands waving all over the place, wordy. I've got to go over and be very deliberate and formal with them. And that's what they'll want. And so, like, when I learned that, it became a lot more fun, a lot easier to then go and interact with a lot of people, because like you can kind of, once you know this stuff, you're going to pick up on what kind of elements people are with their personalities, and there's no right or wrong answer at all with this. Everyone's different, and that's one of the things. So I learned from seeing other people treat people all the same in a way that wasn't green and yellow, so I didn't like it, and so I learned that everyone's different, and you've got to adapt to them. So as a designer, you need really good communication skills, which is quite hard to prove on like a CV or a resume. But like during your interview, like you hopefully can talk about it and demonstrate it as well. But I'd look up the Insights color wheel because I found it extremely useful.
Cool. So the next one is, how do you get feedback on your levels? Do you sit with testers and watch them play, or do you get a load of feedback from them and then you read through it all?
So we're quite lucky in Naughty Dog that we have a focus test lab in our studio. So we do an incredible amount of focus testing. We have 10 people, fresh new people, play the game every week. I think I did 36 tests over the 3 years. So at the end, there was always someone playing the game. It was just constantly rolling. Like 360 people played it. And that's how we watch every focus test. We we'll then iterate after that and see where people are getting stuck, or the things they do like and things like that. We never go and sit with them. In fact, they're like in a different part. But what we can do, pardon me, is it gets streamed to our computers, and so we can sit on our desks and watch all the 10 people playing, and they have their camera and we can hear them and stuff like that. At the end of each level, they'll write out like their thoughts and stuff and give like a score. So overall, quickly, you can see the score of each level over each week and see if it's like getting better. We don't go and sit with them because we want to get completely impartial feedback. But ideally, we don't even want them to know that the developers are in the building. Hopefully they just think it's a focus test lab. Because when we ship the game, we're not going to be sat there talking to them on their sofa about where to go and stuff. So we just want completely untouched, pure feedback. We also have a lot of telemetry data as well. So not just things that we can see exactly how much ammo they had at the start. had they spent this amount of time in this level. But we can also do stuff like I can set up invisible regions that when you walk into it, it will trigger a Boolean check, and it will like send to the telemetry data any information, so I can see, right, how many people went and found the area with my puzzle in, and then I've got another telemetry check to see how many people actually completed it. At the time, I'm always watching, and any ones I can't see, because it's hard to watch 10 at a time, I'll go back and watch. But then you can quickly look back over like the last focus tests and things and say, oh, okay, actually, 5 people found it, 3 people completed it. And then like the next one, 6 people found it, 3 completed it, 7 people found it, 3 completed it. And then you're like, okay, well, we need to make it a bit easier to find and a bit easier to complete. And then you can go up to like 9 people found it, 8 people completed it. And then like, it is getting better. You don't have to sort of remember what it was like months ago. Yeah, we put a lot of focus on our focus testing.
So there's 2 questions that aren't specifically aimed at you, and I've got messages about the fact that we're running out of time.
Okay.
So the first one was, what was the thought process when you started designing the fundamental game loop and mechanics for The Last of Us 2 as it's a sequel? Did you start from scratch, or was it you took something from the original? And then the second one is, what type of HUDs menus should upcoming UI designers be researching in the industry right now?
Oh yeah, so for the fundamental gameplay loop, I reached out to Asher Einhorn, one of our scripters who dealt with a lot of the systems and did a lot of like buddy combat stuff, and Matthew Gallant, who's our lead systems designer. So they're much better at talking about this, because I'm not focused on mechanics. But for me as a layout designer, how I thought about the fundamental gameplay loop was that in your environment, you're going around to scavenge stuff, to pick up items and ammo, so that you can then make like your items to get through the combat sections against enemies that use these all up. And then when you've used them all up and got past the enemies, you then have to go back to scavenging the environment. I think we did a really good job of the sequel being, people always want the same but different for a sequel, right? So I think why I would say was really successful is that we stuck with the same and similar gameplay loops, but then just changed up how you were doing it, and also obviously changed like the theming and the characters and the story in the world. So like we added like, squeeze throughs, prone unders and that kind of stuff, like breakable glass. And so for me, I was still trying to get people to scavenge things, but I was allowing them different ways to do it than in the first game. Like they could break glass to get into places, they could prone under stuff. Now I think what I'll do, I'll just skip over mine and I'll read what Asher and Matthew said. So Asher said, fundamentally, I was most aware of not trying to upset the balance between stealth, combat and retreating. First game had such a deliberate balance between them all, so you regularly had to regain stealth and start the cycle over again. And any alteration to the core systems might ruin that. The addition of something like dodge does throw it off, so you have to rebalance it. You have to make something else more threatening so the player is forced to run again. Which is a great answer about like combat. And Matthew, he said, the starting point would be thinking about how Ellie is different from Joel. We wanted to reflect that she was younger and lighter, perhaps sneakier and less of a brawler than Joel in her mechanics. Hence why we added dodge, prone, stealth grass. These built very nicely on top of the core mechanics from T1. T1 is what we call Last of Us 1 internally. From there, we looked at environmental mechanics that would fit with these new mechanics. So we added dodge through gaps while iterating on melee combat, because we wanted to give Ellie a way to nimbly elude her foes. And those became the squeeze throughs. And similarly, once we had prone, we got to add prone height grass and prone hiding spaces. So that's the kind of way of how it builds, from character to character mechanics to environments mechanics. Was the other question about the UI?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I know nothing about UI. I won't even pretend I do. So I asked Ethan Tal, our UI designer, and Maria Capel, who's our lead UI designer, and because they give much better answers than me. Ethan said, in my opinion, the answer is really all UI, as in like to look at, what UI to look at is all UI. Not just games, but websites and apps, I feel. But from what I've seen, we're in an age of a lot of minimal UI, which I love. Menus and HUDs that are clean and simple, so they don't take away attention, but deliver information straight to the player. Personally, I'd say look at as many titles as you can and compare them to each other, and notice trends of solutions to problems I have and take note of that. Maria said, in my opinion, it's also really important that the designs have good usability, are intuitive and gives the player the necessary information. A good UX or UI design for me shouldn't be noticeable until you need it. Its purpose is to make you flow naturally with the story and doesn't break the player's immersion into the journey. If you have to pay too much attention to the UI to understand it and breaks or disrupts your immersion, then it's not that good. I advise them to learn by looking at UI or UX that they like and analyze it and try to understand why the designers made those choices and what can be improved to help the player's experience. Also, accessibility is a big part. An example of it could be the accessibility features in Last of Us Part 2 to ensure that as many fans as possible have the opportunity to experience the game.
Awesome.
So I hope those helped.
Yeah. So sadly, I think we've run out of time, but we can get around the last answer real easily and we'll put some up on Twitter for it. And the last question was about what books would you suggest for aspiring designers? So I think we can put together like a quick list and we'll tweet it out because I'm getting a very angry Animex manager messaging me, but I'm just ignoring him. So
that's not the way.
So yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble. But I gotta say, like, thank you so much, Pete. That was absolutely amazing. And whenever we get a chance to do this back on campus in Middlesbrough, we'd love to have you back at Teesside University to do a talk.
Cool, yeah, let's come back.
Awesome.
Cheers,
so for anybody else who's looking to do the last talk of the day, it's about to start. It's for Animex AVFX, and it's DNEG talking about Synthetic Essence, the animation of Westward 3. So that will be starting as soon as I stop this. So thank you very much, Pete.
No problem. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Hope it was helpful.